Theorizing that primetime audiences were ready for a new time travel series, NBC and creator Donald Bellisario debuted Quantum Leap on March 26, 1989. Starring Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell, the series followed Dr. Sam Beckett for 5 seasons of time-hopping adventures and vanished. Now, NBC Universal has resurrected the cult series for a new era. Starring Raymond Lee and Caitlin Bassett, the series once again follows a scientist as he leaps through history, making right what once went wrong. But just what is the show getting right and wrong? That's what we'll explore here on Oh Boy.
Oh boy, it's a Quantum Leap podcast. My name is Nate, and with me is a co-host we can all see and hear. It's Brian Martin.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Brian. Halloween time.
Yeah, spooky season is behind us. I don't know how spooky it got for you, Nate, but I had to dress as one of the Paw Patrol. So plenty scary for me. Because my kid picks, and I always get saddled with like the least popular characters in every franchise.
Who's the least popular Paw Patrol character?
The recycling one. The one whose thing is recycling.
Well, that should really be the coolest, Brian.
It should be, but it's definitely not.
Well, the scariest thing that happened to my house is the COVID infection has spread.
Ugh.
My wife was afflicted, and my son got it and was unable to trick-or-treat this year. But that's probably the scariest thing that happened to me outside of network television at Halloween time.
That's kind of what I wanted to lead off with this week, because it's kind of special when Quantum Leap, whether we're talking about the old series, whether we're talking about this relaunch, gives you an opportunity to just kind of dive into a genre episode.
Yeah.
Right? We got it once this season already with the Old West episode, which was a genre I know you're heavily
which episode? What episode was that? Oh, I'm sorry. I wiped that one from my memory.
Yeah. Yeah, because you love the genre, and then you were like, I've seen this a billion times in this episode. Yeah. And so here we get a horror episode, and I was wondering what kind of background you were bringing to it.
I came to the realization just a few years ago that I don't have to like horror.
This sounds like a revelation.
It was.
That came after like months of therapy.
It was. It was a lifetime of pop culture, is what it was.
Let yourself not like horror.
Yes, yes, horror is so intertwined with all of the things that I do like. You know, sci-fi, comics. It's close enough that you are supposed to like it.
Sure.
And then I kind of recognized that I didn't like it, and then I stopped forcing myself to watch them, and then I just said, you know what? I'm not a fan of horror. And
there you go.
And I'm okay with that.
That's okay. I did pretty good Halloween this year in terms of watching like scary movies all month. And like over the weekend, I watched a couple of, I would say, good to awesome movies.
Oh, yeah?
Being Malignant, which I had not seen yet, and Barbarian, which came out a couple months ago and is now on HBO Max.
Is that a horror movie, Barbarian?
It's let's just say it'll do for Airbnbs what Jaws did for the water.
Oh, okay. See, I was picturing like Conan or something.
No, it's not. Not
like an
that.
Actual barbarian.
Nothing like that at all.
Oh, okay.
And then I chased it on Monday night this week with our subject matter, Quantum Leap's Halloween episode.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about as horror as I go. I have an affinity for the Friday the 13th series for some reason.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know. Like, I like a Shutter Island, or some people might even call Seven a horror movie.
Yeah, toes the line. I would say that definitely toes the line.
So things like that I dig, but, you know, things with a lot of gore or jump scares, just like, why am I watching this?
I think you'll like. I think you will like Barbarian.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I do think you'll like Barbarian because it's not very gore heavy, very thrillery and suspenseful. It's
suspense,
but it's also hilarious, regularly really funny. In fact, it's got a sequence in it that is one of the funniest sequences I've seen in a movie in at least a couple of years.
Wow. In a horror movie.
Yeah.
Horror comedy. I mean, that's a
pretty
genre.
great.
Horror comedy is
It
a
is.
genre.
It is. I would hesitate to call this like a comedy, but there are moments in it that are just hilarious.
Well, maybe I'll check that out. As far as the special Halloween episodes of things, I can get into that.
You get something a little bit cornier maybe, or
Yeah.
something that's just a little bit just seasonal, right? It's
Right.
got kind of a seasonal flavor. It's like the pumpkin spice latte of television.
Right. Like we've had the Hocus Pocus all month.
Okay.
When you got a 7-year-old at home, he's dressing like the Sanderson sisters and having a good old time. So
You go all three of them at once.
yeah.
That's pretty good. I'm into the horror genre. I don't deep dive into the horror genre like a lot of people I know.
You say this with a Frankenstein poster on the wall behind you.
And a Bride of Frankenstein poster adjacent. But that's it. I like classic horror. And a lot of modern stuff doesn't really do it for me, but occasionally something will come along that does, right? Like some really notable ones from recent years would be like The Descent. And
Okay.
It Follows was a favorite one for me. The Babadook was one for me.
Oh, yeah. People like that.
Those kinds of movies, I'm like, when it's something really kind of new and has something interesting to say that you haven't quite seen before, It Follows, to me, was just hands down one of the best scary movies of the last decade. Absolutely loved it.
Cool.
One of the best movies in general. But even like a movie like Midsummer is another one that I like really, really loved.
Okay. Yeah.
Unconventional-ish horror movies. The Witch. Robert Eggers' The Witch is another one.
Yeah.
So like I like movies like that. I like feeling creeped out. I like feeling tense and suspenseful, but I like the gore kind of slasher movies don't generally do it for me.
Right.
The scariest movie of all time to me and most people is probably The Exorcist. And that's why you get an episode with a teaser like this episode of Quantum Leap. You've got my attention.
Right.
We've got a possession. I feel like every movie about a possessed little girl owes its life to The Exorcist.
Oh, absolutely. They're all trying to meet that peak, I think.
Exactly. And this was no exception because it has a lot of similarities to it.
Right. When I saw the little teaser for this week's episode, I thought, oh, good, hokey, fun, silly episode. That's what I was anticipating, especially given the opening where the 669,
the number
the
spins
number
down,
spins, and it's 666, ooh, scary. And I thought it was going to be very much akin to some of the episodes we discussed last week with Al as the devil, just something that's going to be hokey and fun. And I don't know if I got that vibe from it.
Yeah.
So who accepted the nudge this week?
So October 31st, of course, 1934, Ben finds himself in the body of Father Davenport, a clergyman who has traveled from Baltimore to tend to a young woman named Daisy, who by all accounts is possessed by a goddamn demon. According to Ziggy, Daisy will die at 6 past midnight, leaving Ben with only a few hours to prevent her untimely demise. Making matters worse, due to a mysterious glitch in the system, Addison vanishes, leaving Ben completely on his own. I thought that last little bit was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I actually really enjoyed about this episode was the fact that he was by himself. I think I mentioned it. I'd like to see him try and be left to his own devices for a little while. Mm-hmm. And they gave me a whole episode where he kind of had to figure it out on his own.
While drugged for at least a portion of it.
Yeah.
You find out.
I've got a question about that, actually.
Sure. Your question and my question are probably the same. So first, within a few minutes of arriving at this house, both Father Davenport and Ben via leaping, we're introduced to our Clue-like cast of characters, which includes Daisy, the daughter that is possessed, Lola, her mother, Charles, her father,
mm-hmm.
Percy, her lush uncle,
yeah,
Contessa, the matriarch of the family, and Magda, the housekeeper.
Right.
So they even have a butler there for good measure.
Right, exactly.
And Ben is told very quickly that he's expected to exorcise a demon. And and he denies it. He says, spoiler alert, the demon's not real.
Right.
Right off the bat, the first thing he does is, again, my favorite thing that Ben does at the beginning of a Quantum Leap episode. He asked for the bathroom.
Where's your water closet?
Yeah. Goes in there, talks with Addison. Ben's like, there's no demon. This can't be real. And Addison seems like she's really getting into this idea. She seems like the kind of person who listens to true crime podcasts, loves supernatural stuff, watches unsolved mysteries, like that sort of thing. And she's like, ooh, ghosts. And then, of course, she fritzes and vanishes.
Yeah. Almost in the same kind of sense that I have with my wife, where just because he definitely doesn't believe it, she believes it just a little bit more for his sake.
Yes. Like, I feel like Addison wants it to be real because she's heard all these stories and now she's, I'm a part of one now,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interestingly, because this is very much a sci-fi show, this is kind of a faith versus science episode,
Yeah.
And the first thing that I really noticed is, I believe it's when Ziggy tells them that he's supposed to perform an exorcism, and he's saying, that's ridiculous. She says, well, that's why the machine brought you here. Did you catch that?
Yes. Yeah.
That's why the machine brought you here. So are they just kind of doing away with the whole God, fate, time thing? Because later...
I've underscored that one, because later Ian makes sort of a backhanded comment about like, well, is it really so weird that there's a demon here? I mean, Sam Beckett thought God was leaping him around. You know?
Right.
Like, and he says it like, well, of course God wasn't leaping him around, right?
Right?
Yeah. And we've talked about that before. Like, is this show going to veer into that sort of faith-based territory? And I feel like we probably got our answer this week.
Yeah.
Definitively.
But what's really strange about that is that what kind of technology would require that you do something good for someone in order to continue moving? Like, if it's not, if
I can tell you one thing, not any technology Elon Musk would be interested in buying.
The structure of the show works under the notion that somebody is driving you to do something better to better humanity, to do a good deed that allows you to move on and continue your travels, right? If it's just a machine that sent you here, what's the guiding force? Yeah.
What's determining what's good and what's not?
And
is it the machine?
And why? Yeah, exactly. Why would changing something for the better cause you to move on? Where's the math that tells you that's what's supposed to happen?
You need a cosmic force, like we were talking about last week,
right,
to really sell that part of it, because it doesn't make any sense if it's just a computer running algorithms and it tells you. It's like seeing targeted ads on Facebook. Like, it's like, I think you'll like this one.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems strange, in addition to the idea that they have all these records from the prior project. Magic himself has talked about the records that they had on him, and they were entirely operating on the notion that somebody else was in control of this project. They understood that and were working within those confines on that original show. And yeah, they're definitely holding that at an arm's length.
To be fair, I feel like Magic would probably have been an easier sell on a faith-based kind of angle here. I think Ian is, like, by virtue of who they are, not interested in your theories that God is controlling the quantum accelerator, right? But I think Magic would probably be a guy like, look, I don't know. And maybe I'm just projecting Winston Zedmore. Like,
Well, no, like, I get where you're coming from.
I think it plays to Ian's character to be like, come on, but seriously, do any of us really think that God was leaping Sam Beckett around,
Right.
So maybe we haven't gotten the final word in it. But this episode, as it progresses, seems to at least reiterate the type of show it is, in that it's the show of science, right?
Right.
Although along the way we're treated to some, I don't know, I think relatively horrifying moments. There's a couple moments in this show that I was like, that was scary.
Yeah, I have a little section here in my hand scribbled notes about the way the show looked this week. Mm-hmm. The direction, the mood, and the lighting was all really good.
Yeah, this is the first week I took notes about specific shots, I think.
Right? Yeah. I
There's
mean, I
some
didn't make
great
notes, but
shots.
mentally I did as well. I was like, oh, well, they're actually making a real directorial effort here.
Yeah.
I wonder who directed that show. I'm going to look that up while you're talking. See.
I always miss the credits at the beginning because I'm typing.
Yeah.
when it's happening. But a couple moments early on, in fact, it doesn't play it close to the chest at all, because before the title card shows up, you see the ghost or the demon that is possessing this little girl.
Yeah.
It looks like a Dementor from Harry Potter almost. Like it's just this swirling black cloudy mass with a humanoid figure in it, and it's scary as hell. And Ben's reaction is, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
And then cut to main titles, and the title card itself that said Quantum Leap was orange for Halloween, and the theme song was played on an organ. Which I was like, oh, that's cute. That's cute. We're really getting into it here.
Man, I am ashamed. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah.
Didn't even.
Fun little moment. Fun little moment.
I don't know how I missed that. I found the director, Chris Grismer. I'm sure he's just primarily a television guy. 9 Lives of a movie called Freakish.
Okay, so that sounds genre specific.
Clutch. Yeah, it definitely looks like horror. Oh no, that's a Hulu series.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, it looks like he's still in the ranks of television at this point. Prodigal Son, Deputy, Unsettling, the TV series. TV.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, not to say on his way to better things, but I think he's definitely gave the episode a look. Whereas, you know how we talked about this show being an NBC show? Oh, well, it's NBC television, and you can just tell.
Yes.
It didn't feel it felt like it was going for an atmosphere this week.
Part of I think what works in that regard is the fact that the whole episode takes place in this house.
Yes.
That's helping a lot. I think that the whole episode taking place at night helps a lot. There's a lot of just sort of built-in elements in the story that you can play around with to create this mood and maintain it throughout.
To say nothing of the fact of the time period that they chose,
sure.
The 30s, it's everybody's wearing Victorian style clothes.
And perhaps one of the interesting elements of the plot is that maybe the demon's not the scariest thing happening right now, because we're right in the middle of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And the family is feeling it. Right?
Yeah.
In ways that sort of come back later on in the episode.
Right.
I appreciated that, at least. We saw it with the earthquake, where the leap is kind of happening contextually at the same time as this event everybody remembers. We saw it with the Bounty Hunter episode, because the framing device there was the Princess Diana wedding, right?
Yes.
So there's these sort of like major historical milestones that are happening that help you sort of stay in that world or keep your heads in that space, because it's something you definitely heard about before.
Right.
At least I hope you've heard of the Great Depression before. I've met kids and adults, to be fair, that make me worried about that.
Yeah. But no, I get what you say. It definitely uses that as a set piece, for all these characters. But as far as the spooky, scary stuff, like you mentioned, they show the demon right away. And the question I had about the drugging is he witnesses that demon before he's drugged, though, right?
It seems like, yes. Yeah, he hasn't had a drink at that point. That was one of the questions. The other question is everybody seeing the demon? Does everybody see the same thing? Like, how do you control something like that?
She mentions that, like a week after my birthday, the wallpaper started to move or whatever, right?
And then we see that happen later on.
He sees that happen as well. So he hallucinates the same way.
So in a way, she's incepting him.
Maybe,
she's inceptioning moving wallpaper. If Ben sees it, is it really there?
But he hadn't been drugged yet.
Yeah, not that we saw. He had met the family at that point.
Yes.
I don't remember if he was offered a drink, honestly, because it was like 10 minutes in.
He had, I think, turned the drink down. No, he didn't. No, he went right upstairs. I was going to ask you, because I really don't think that he had been exposed to anything at the time that he saw that demon floating over the bed. So
yeah, because
I think
he
it's a
went in.
continuity error.
he met the family. He met all the family members.
Yep.
Addison showed up, went into the bathroom, came out, went up the stairs.
Yeah.
That was the sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to go back and check.
I'm pretty sure it's a continuity error there, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, no, I think you might have caught something there. So now we have to no prize it. We got to come up with an explanation for it now.
Oh.
For those of you who don't know, the no prize was famously given out to Marvel Comics readers for a few decades for coming up with plausible explanations for continuity errors in their comics. If you provided an explanation that made enough sense, you would get an empty envelope with a no prize.
And did you ever earn one of these, Brian?
Never,
No.
ever
Okay.
did I earn a no prize. But I would say, okay, so we know that Ben went to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he drank water from the tap. And I'm not saying the water was drugged. I'm saying it was tap water.
Okay.
And probably a lot of lead in it. I'm thinking I'm saying the water's not healthy. It's the middle of the 30s. You know, it can't be that good to drink straight out of the tap. I don't think. All these corroded pipes, probably.
I'm gonna give my explanation a little more thought, I think.
Okay. All right.
They do this thing in the episode where they flip it, where, okay, well, I can't come up with a scientific explanation, so I'm gonna go with the faith-based explanation because I need to step outside of myself to see what the truth is, right? Is kind of his thing. Kind of felt like he gave up pretty quick.
He's only got 45 minutes.
True enough.
He does. It's basically like a scene later, and sort of the thoughts kind of pop in his head, and he starts to reason, okay, well, what if this and what if that?
Well, I think why it gives me a little hiccup is because he does it immediately following having removed an obstacle from the case. Because he discovers the dead fish that the maid put under there that was creating the decay smell.
Yeah, that was pretty gross.
Yeah, right. They put the maggots in the fish and all that stuff. And he pulls that out and see like, okay, so that's where the smell is from. There's a logical explanation for the rotting flesh. Mm-hmm. And then the matron, the maid lady, says, well, no, I put that there, but the demon is real. Then he's back to square one and decides to go, like, it seems like having removed the smell, oh, well, there was an explanation for that. There's probably an explanation for these other things. But instead, there goes that theory. I guess I'll try being a priest instead.
Yeah, I agree that it kind of happens a little quickly, but I do think that the scene where he sort of reasons through this, because Addison's not there as a soundboard, right?
Right.
He talks to his own reflection, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, it was.
Like where he sits there and has a conversation with the priest whose body he's in. Yes. And it just cuts back and forth between the mirror image and him. That's cool. I don't remember ever seeing a Quantum Leap.
Yeah, they do that.
Did that before.
They do it really interestingly too, because it kind of walks this line between, a reaction shot and a reflection, which I thought is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And plus that guy is like the poor man's Ed Harris.
Yeah, this is true.
I was like, who is that guy? I don't know who that guy is, but it's the poor man's Ed Harris.
So, flirting with the way the story's resolved, he sees that demon a couple more times. We see the wallpaper move, which actually, just the way we say it, wallpaper moving, doesn't quite sell it. It's like a human form coming out of the wallpaper, and the wallpaper's kind of contorting and stretching, kind of like the T-1000 coming up from the floor is what it looks like, right?
Well, they draw a lot of imagery from like more recent horror stuff. That kind of look is very common these days, and then also sort of that herky-jerky, jump-cutty...
The movement
of the demon.
Movement that is like they get 10 celery sticks and snap them every time your neck moves, right? Like so it's all that's just cracking and like, they really lean into that. So there's very much a modern horror aesthetic in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I think that kind of surprises, or it looks unique when you contrast it with like other episodes of Quantum Leap, sure, but other things that are on NBC. On a given week, right?
Exactly.
Like it's got a look that's like, I don't want to say prestige-y, but definitely more
Cinematic.
movie focused, right?
Yeah.
More cinematic.
Yeah.
So we meet these family members. And in true modern Quantum Leap fashion, we get about one scene with each one of them. And we find out that Lola wanted to be an actress in Hollywood. And Charles has recently been locked out of his inheritance from Contessa. Magda believes there's some sort of old world spirit, and that's why she put the fish under the bed. Percy is, again, a drunkard. He is an encyclopedia salesman.
Right. And more importantly, Seth Meyers' brother.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
Really?
Josh Myers. He's Seth Meyers' brother. And that's all I could see was Seth Meyers' brother the whole time because he's on
that's how he got the gig.
Yeah, yeah. He's on late night every now and then, and he's basically just his brother. So I couldn't take him seriously.
No, he's a fop. He's kind of like this foppish, dandyish kind of guy. Percy is the one who's kind of responsible for losing a lot of Charles's money in the stock market crash. And now that Charles has been written out of Contessa's will, kind of raises some questions that only become even more pronounced when Contessa dies.
Right.
Her body is found on top of a wardrobe in the room that Daisy is occupying.
Right. Supposedly locked in there by herself with Contessa. And
yes.
It gives credence to the idea that there must be a demon because this frail 18-year-old girl couldn't lift a grown woman up onto the mantle where she was dead.
But of course, we all know better than that because, again, we've seen Clue, we've played Clue, and we know a murder mystery when we see one.
Right.
You don't introduce a cast like the motley crew that we've seen in this episode without it being a murder mystery. And so it just, at that point, becomes a whodunit.
Yeah.
Was it Charles? Was it Percy? Was it the demon? Who is responsible for this?
Right.
It's both exactly what you expect and maybe not quite what you expect, I guess.
How is it not quite what we expect?
They pull one of those switcheroos at the last minute.
Oh, I see.
We figure out quick. Okay, we've made no secret up through this point of this episode talking about it that someone is drugging the water, someone's drugging drinks, and
the soup, yeah.
Some of the soup. And so what is being seen? The demon, the spectral wallpaper, all of that, it's all hallucinations, right? That are brought on by what we learn is Jimson weed?
Jimson weed, yeah, that's right.
Yes. And that Percy's been dosing Daisy with this ever since her birthday, like 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks, yeah.
So that's why she's in a rough spot and almost dead now.
You think she was supposed to create all those claw marks on her face by herself, or do you think they like cut her while she was sleeping so that she would think that the demon did it to her?
God, I really hope it wasn't that. Everything is bad.
It just seems, but I don't know.
That seems like even kind of worse.
There has to be more involved than feeding this child some Jimson weed in her soup every once in a while to fake a demon possession.
It's a lot of Jimson weed.
You'd have to, when she speaks with the demon voice, she's choosing to do that. Like, some drug is not going to make, you know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know. Remember that guy who got a little hopped up on bath salts and started eating that hobo's face like a decade ago? I don't think he decided he was hungry for hobo face.
I guess that's true. I guess I don't know what the effects of Jimson weed are, so outside of what's read to me in this episode.
I know what one of the effects seemed to be anyway, and that's that Daisy was able to see Ben.
Oh, right.
Early in the leap, and she refers to him as an angel.
Yeah.
Sent from God.
Right.
So there's that again.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of an interesting little moment.
I actually expected more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Just with what I know of these types of Quantum Leap episodes, in the past, they've always kind of flirted with this idea of the paranormal versus the scientific aspect versus the faith-based aspect, And I really just anticipated that, she's going to be able to see him as Ben, or she's going to see Addison, or, something of that nature. Because there's always kind of those hokey things. And as luck would have it, in my rewatch on the original series, I just came off of the episode A Portrait for Troyan.
Yeah. Yes, there's another ghost. There's a ghost in that episode.
an honest to goodness, cannot write this off scenario. It is 100% a ghost.
Yes.
You know?
It disappears. The last thing we see before Sam leaves is the ghost disappear.
It's another situation where they're in a big old mansion, kind of closed off from society, and this woman, Troyan, had hired a maid or a, housekeeper, and she said that she had grown up there and what have you. And turns out she's a ghost. Just an honest to goodness ghost. Interestingly, played by Carolyn Seymour.
Oh.
Having been in several other sci-fi and television character roles, actually plays Zoe on later episodes of Quantum Leap.
That's right.
She's both the...
Oh my gosh, she's the Evil Leaper's hologram.
She's the Evil Leaper's hologram and plays
you're
Priscilla.
right. I don't know how I missed that.
Yeah.
Maybe I knew that a long time ago. And Troyan is played by
Deborah Pratt.
The
then wife of Donald Belisario.
Yeah. And they had a daughter named Troyan. Lots of Easter eggs in that one episode of Quantum Leap, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding. And like I said, it plays very much to this episode where the host was like a paranormal investigator or whatever, and he had all these things that were like supposed to be measuring the magnetic poles and the, whatever. And when in proximity to these instruments, it allowed people to hear Al somehow.
That's right.
So it's another thing where in these types of weird, it's spiritual episodes, you always expect the characters are going to be privy to Addison or Al, or they're going to know that they're not dealing with the person at face value. You know what I mean?
Like the mysticism is to some degree going to supersede the science.
Yes. Right. That's
at some point.
Thanks for saying that a little more succinctly.
So she sees Ben for who he is,
because of Jimson weed.
Yeah. And before we know what's going on completely, when the demon shows up, he says, "The end is nigh for you, traveler." Which I thought, oh God, that's creepy.
Yeah.
That's creepy as hell. The demon sees him too. But yeah, they set up this elaborate sting operation. They found a hidden passage in the house, as old houses tend to have, that goes straight from Daisy's room to Percy's room. We've cracked the code. Ben fakes Daisy's quote-unquote death with the help of Daisy, and she's kind of in on it now. And when that happens, we find out that he's in cahoots. And this is the twist at the end. Lola comes up and says, "Percy, you idiot."
Yeah, right.
You've ruined everything. They were going to run off together to Hollywood.
Right. It wasn't about the inheritance money for Percy. It was love.
It was love what did it.
Yeah.
It always is. When you're a traveling salesman, you're just looking for that one thing to keep you coming back, man.
Which then says that this woman murdered not only her mother-in-law, but her own daughter.
She was prepared to murder her own daughter.
Yeah.
That's fucked up,
yeah.
man.
Right, because she's never had anything on her own terms. Which, okay, I sympathize with that, but, wow. When you really think about it.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's like it's cute for a little twist in a television show, but like in reality, if you take all that away, this woman has slowly poisoned her daughter.
So it's got it's got that good psycho tinge that you like,
seriously.
like just a crazy person.
Yeah.
So I guess, the family's destroyed, but at least Daisy's alive. And there's a nice little moment with Daisy at the end where she tells Lola, "I forgive you."
Yeah.
And Lola's like, "How can you forgive me?" And she's like, "It's just what I believe in."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, that's actually wonderful." And that's about the time we find out what happens to Daisy later on in her life. It's implied that she basically invents goodwill.
Right. She gives the majority portion of her inheritance to an organization called Goodwill, yeah.
Yeah.
And furthers its existence, yeah. Another little Quantum Leap touch of history situation here. Where it's like, well, I'm pretty sure that's going to take off.
Yeah, exactly. I wish you would just say that at the end of every episode.
Yeah.
I think this is going to take off.
Yeah.
So you may notice that we haven't really done a lot of talking about the 2022 plot line this week, and that's because there isn't much to it.
Yeah, we got a break from it.
we actually spend, I'd say, close to 85% of this episode in 1934 on this leap.
Yeah.
We get a couple scenes with Ian and Addison
Mm-hmm.
where they are pondering about, first, why the interference has happened with Addison. Why can't Ben see her this week? And also looking up internet articles about the haunting.
Yeah.
Well, basically, internet articles. They're looking up Reddit posts, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually wanted to talk about that for a second. Ziggy and the internet. Really not something I had considered until this episode. They were looking up Reddit posts about this historical event that Ben is presently living and changing the outcome of, right? So, first of all, let me just say, when they first introduced the fact that Ian is looking on Reddit, there's a great transition by the director or the editor of the episode, whomever's made this decision, which was to take a photo of Contessa's corpse being loaded into the hearse, and the flash of the photo transitions into the computer screen of Ian looking at the post of that photo, which I thought was a really neat transition. And it kind of showed that Ian was looking up current information on the past through Reddit, which is really a bizarre thing to do. But it raises this larger notion of 1998 time travel. You know, Ziggy was pulling all his or her statistics.
Microfiche. It was all microfiche.
Yeah, like from newspaper clippings and public records and government documents and stuff that are on file somewhere. Because time travel was invented before the internet.
Right.
But with the advent of the internet, there is so much information at Ziggy's fingertips. It's really an interesting conversation to say, like, how much wrong information is she able to draw from the internet? Like, what places is she going to go to get information that's factual?
It's all InfoWars and 4chan.
Yeah.
Like, that's where she's getting all her
Well,
info
no, I
from.
mean, that's all that's out there. Like, where is she going?
I would like to think that, having been there in the early days of the internet, Ziggy has developed the ability to discern legitimate sources from illegitimate sources.
Yeah.
More so than, say, our parents. Let's just say that. Like, you know, like, Ziggy's got to be better at this than our parents are.
But
my parents, anyway. I don't know.
That, that notwithstanding, on the internet, the lines of information are so blurred where you could take Ziggy's calculations at face value in the 90s because there was only so much information out there. I mean, I guess certain newspaper clippings could have certain proclivities towards leaning one way or the other, but there wasn't this notion that facts were wrong in the 90s.
The idea that information itself is inherently biased.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. It just seemed really interesting to me, this idea that Ziggy probably has so much more data to work with now when coming up with her predictions on what God wants. or what the machine wants.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
The machine is a capital M.
Yeah.
It's like the cosmic machine. Sort of like the flying spaghetti monster. It's just one of those other things. One of those.
It's a very interesting choice to use the word machine brought you here.
It felt very Grant Morrison-y.
It felt very like, we don't know what word to use. You know what I mean? Like, they could have said the accelerator. Well, the accelerator brought you here.
The grand cosmic gyroscope.
But getting back to Ziggy and the internet, like, ultimately, they've determined that he was successful in his leap because the post that they were viewing was suddenly not found.
Yeah, error 404.
It was suddenly an error 404. Oh, well, this thing that we were witnessing has changed, and now it's not on the internet anymore. You know, which is
much like an Elon Musk tweet about some sort of fraudulent conspiracy theory about an attacker. It just sort of vanished into the ether. Nobody knows what happened. I
thought it more akin to the Polaroid from Back to the Future.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It is the Polaroid from Back to the Future. It's the thing by which you're assessing in real time how successful this venture is.
Right.
And it works because there's no other way for the guys in 2022 to even know if he was successful or not. So it's really kind of the only benchmark they have, because we get through the end of this episode and they don't see Ben again.
Yeah, that's what they use to determine that he's been successful.
Kind of cool. Kind of a cool little thing. And I just, like, there's so many fun moments in this episode. And I guess stylistically and in terms of just playfully toying with the horror genre,
Yeah.
or the suspense genre, there were so many, just, it felt like everybody involved had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
From the top down, not just the performers who seemed like they were having a lot of fun, but everybody involved, like the director, cinematographer, everybody seemed to be having a blast with this one.
Yeah, yeah. And it was a good time. Definitely came through on screen. Had some fun with the spookiness, and then it was also a mystery. And
How did you feel? How did you feel when Ben cracked the code on the ginseng weed and the fact that they'd all been drugged and stuff? And because the first thought I had was, this fucking buzzkill. Look, we can't just have fun with our demonic possession. I felt like, you remember that ICP song, Magic? The Insane Clown Posse had this awful song, Magic, and they're talking about, like, all these scientific phenomena, but, like, we just can't know how it works, how do magnets work, all this stuff, and it's like magic. They're just saying everything is magic.
Yeah.
And it's really fucking stupid, but during this episode of Quantum Leap, I was like, I feel like a juggler. I get what you're talking about now, because I just wanted this to be Magic too.
Yeah.
Magic, oddly enough, the only character we don't see this week.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't disappointed by that necessarily. I actually like the idea that maybe we don't have to use everybody every time.
Yes, yeah.
If it's going to serve the story to maybe leave a character here or character there out.
Say what you feel.
Yeah, they're really sewing the two ladies together.
Yeah,
they're going to be gal pals.
Jen gets one scene this week, and it, spoilers, does not pass the Bechdel test. And if that's going to be the role from here on out, then so be it.
Yeah, I guess. I just don't buy her in anything that she tries to do.
Not even.
I feel really bad about it. I don't. Yeah, I just, like, she doesn't have a tone. Like, where is she? Like, what kind of person is she? Like, she's everything.
Yeah,
she's like hokey and jokey, but also like super stern and cynical.
Yeah,
but also like supportive and heartfelt. But like, I don't know.
But really self-deprecating and like ready to quit.
Yeah. But also so cocksure that she used to be a criminal, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Every time she's on the screen now, my brain says, could this scene be accomplished by one of two other characters? Mm-hmm. And the answer is always yes. Could this same scene have happened with Magic? Probably. Maybe a little differently, but probably. Yeah. The same thing could be accomplished. Could it be done with Ian? Absolutely. Right?
Like, yeah.
Jen's character could be supplanted in most cases by one of those two characters.
Yeah.
And probably should be. Shrinking the cast only allows for more time, especially if you're trying to juggle two storylines.
It allows more time for the leap, like we saw this week.
If you're breaking down a script and you're trying to tell the story as economically as possible, and you've got more in the leap that you want to show, but then you've got this scene that you don't necessarily want to cut between Jen and Addison where they talk about their feelings and Ben. What you can do is you can chop those types of things up and then kind of sprinkle them into the interactions that she's having with Ian while they're talking about Ziggy being on the fritz. You know? You just
Speaking of whom, Ziggy would also be a character I would like to see this conversation with.
Yes. Sure. Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Give Ziggy her voice. That's what I want.
Yeah. Right. You know what? I just happened to be on the internet as one is and discovered that apparently we heard Ziggy's voice in episode 1.
Really?
Because Deborah Pratt also plays Ziggy's voice.
Yes.
And she's got a credit for having been Ziggy's voice in episode 1 of the relaunch.
Oh, well. Gonna have to go back to that.
I don't recall that, but IMDb will tell you that Deborah Pratt played Ziggy's voice in season 1 of episode 1, blah, blah, blah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gonna have to look into that one for sure. There is one more character from 2022 that we see in this episode in the final moments
Oh, yeah.
of the episode. Once again, the show doing what shows do now when they throw something major at you, a major cliffhanger at you right as the show is ending. You know, we've talked previously about Janice stealing Al's hand link, seemed to be creating her own imaging chamber, and at the end of this episode, we find out why Addison's projection has been interfered with.
Right.
And that's because Janice is trying to muscle in, and she appears in the final moments before Ben as a hologram
that only he could see and hear.
That only he could see and hear from the year 2022.
Right. Presumably.
She's
perhaps 2024. Who knows?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe it takes her a while. But she identifies herself, says, "You don't remember me, but I'm here to warn you." And, of course, that's immediately when he leaps. So much like Leaper X a couple weeks ago.
What is she warning him of?
God is a real tease.
Yeah.
About these things. He's like, nope, and plucks Ben out.
That's right. Yeah.
Just as he might find out, or we, the viewer, might find out what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
I think it's worth noting Janice appears to him in a very plaintive and benevolent way.
Yeah.
There's no hostility whatsoever. This is the first time we've seen Janice, I think, where she hasn't seemed threatening at all.
True. Yeah, where she's not the mustache twirling villain.
Right.
It seemed kind of strange to me that Ian had two teams of people working on what the problem was, and then seemed kind of surprised when it's somebody else that they know is already
in the system?
it's already in the system. Like, you already know somebody else has infiltrated Ziggy's system, and this one particular part goes down, and you can't figure out why, and you're completely flummoxed. Like,
did you really think it was the demon?
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right. I mean, I don't understand why they didn't think of that already, except for the narrative's sake and the reveal at the end.
That's 100% what it is. Because realistically, Ian should have already figured out how to lock her out again. You know, it's been a couple weeks. He's had plenty of time.
Yeah. I've been thinking a little bit more about Leaper X, because I listened back to our old episodes, and we tried to think about what the motivations for Martinez could be and why he would say, "If you value your life, stop following me." And we thought, well, he's either perceives Ben as a threat or he's up to no good or something, right? But another option that we didn't really discuss is, like, maybe it's a warning for his own safety. Like, look, if you value your life, stop following me, because I'm off on some dangerous shit that you don't need to be involved in, you know? Like that.
Yeah.
That's just another read that we didn't discuss.
Right. And if you look at it like maybe he was trying to say that to Ben for Ben's own good, that would be perfectly in keeping with the Captain America we met at his mom's house last episode, right? So,
point is, we don't have any real idea about what's going on. You know, like, there's so many options for what could be going on. The one thing that I will say is, if you're going to accept Janice the way she presents herself at the end of this episode, leave us not forget she drugged Beth, drugged her mom, and left her on the floor.
It's kind of an unforgivable sin.
It's an unforgivable. This woman drugged her mother.
Beth is like the Mother Teresa of Quantum Leap. You don't do that.
You don't drug your own mom.
The fan base doesn't like that.
There's no... I digress.
I will say one other thing about this. We don't know where it's going, but I feel maybe the writers are deliberately moving away from this. Maybe it was the original intention and it became not. Maybe their story ideas are changing, but I feel less certain that we're going to see Scott Bakula at some point.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place. And like, they could pretty much go anywhere now.
Yeah, I don't feel like that can be where we're working towards now. It feels like something different than that. So I don't know. I don't know. But this is the first week where I was like, maybe we're not headed towards that. Maybe Scott Bakula saying I'm not on the show is completely legit and on the up and up, and this is just kind of going to be its own thing, and we're never going to see Sam Beckett again. And I'm starting to feel that way a little bit.
Yeah. Right now, it kind of feels like it could go anywhere. So that in and of itself says it doesn't have to go towards Sam. That being said, it's definitely steeped in that mythology, and they bring him up enough, reminding us he's out there.
He's still out there.
But
yeah.
a lot of that probably has something to do with the extension, the 6-episode extension that they got. Like, so, okay, well, suddenly we have to write more television. We don't necessarily have to end where we were planning it to end. I assume they had an idea of how they would tie it up if they had to. And now they've got an opening for 6 more episodes and still no...
At least.
Yeah. Still no renewal for a season 2 yet.
No, but I read that prospects are looking better. Like, talks are happening.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So
just a couple of weeks ago, they were on the chopping block.
I think the thing is, there's a difference between broadcast numbers and streaming numbers. And apparently the show's streaming numbers on Peacock are quite good.
Okay.
So I think that might be a factor there. I'm speculating a little bit.
Well, that's all we can do.
Who knows what?
I don't work for NBC.
Who knows what these people think. So next week is the mid-season finale, the fall finale.
Which you brought to my attention. I did not know that.
Yeah, and Ben is going to be in the body of a teenager in the mid-90s, which I gotta tell you, I'm pretty excited about this one.
Yeah, it looks fun. Again, we've seen all of 30 seconds of it, but looks like a fun adventure.
And I'll tell you what, something I haven't brought up yet that the teaser for next week reminded me of. Every episode or two, they have a song or a pop song or something like that, and they throw in there. Mm-hmm. That 80s episode with the Bounty Hunters was one of them that peppered in a lot of significant songs from the era, right?
Right.
They're doing a really good job picking songs to use in this show. So the teaser for next week, the song in it is song 2 by Blur, which is like peak mid-90s. Yeah. Like, I hear that song and I'm immediately thrown into that era. And it's like, they're doing a really good job just cherry picking the songs that they use in these episodes.
Yeah, what was that big 1934 hit that they played this week?
I think Beyond the Sea played at one point.
There you go.
In there, which I didn't think it was that old, but maybe it was. Maybe Bobby Darin re-recorded it.
You pay a little better attention to that stuff than I do, I guess.
When songs come in, I take notes of it. I just make a Spotify playlist of the songs they've played on this show so far. But I also throw in, what's the one I said, Walking on the Sun, the Smash Mouth song for episode 2. Yeah. Toss that one in there. Nah. I don't like to recreationally listen to Smash Mouth at this point in my life. I got to be honest.
Only for business.
Excuse me. I have to put on my business music.
Yeah. Yeah. So mid-season finale. I wonder. God, it seems awfully soon. Seems early. Yeah. But I guess it's November.
This is going to be 8 episodes in. So as of next week, this show will have run for as long as the first season of the original Quantum Leap did.
Yeah. First season of Quantum Leap was 9 episodes, I think, right?
Yeah.
Wow. You think they'll do something big? Like,
every week has had some sort of big stinger right at the end, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be something huge in episode 8.
It feels really interesting. Like, had you not told me that this was the season finale, I would have been completely blindsided, because the stinger for it seems like a short little, like a mid-90s story. Just like a little, it feels like a one and done kind of episode.
It feels low key.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
It feels a little bit low key.
Like when you get the teaser for the episode we just watched, the Halloween episode, you're like, oh, okay, so I understand. This is going to not further the greater story, right? The bigger story. This is just kind of a one-off. I got the same kind of sense with this stinger. It's like going to be like a teen adventure thing for an episode. I feel like if it were really going to be a mid-season finale, it's going to be a lot in the 2022 storyline, some kind of big mystery reveal that wants you to come back after Christmas.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Martinez again.
Okay.
And Janice is a given. I think we'll see Janice next week. And I think we'll see Martinez next week. Maybe we'll see Ben, Martinez, Janice, and Addison all together simultaneously. All 4 of them.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where we end. Who knows? But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, does that wrap it up tonight?
I think so.
Okay.
When leaping through cyberspace, find us on Twitter. I'm at Captain Byrne. That's CaptainBern.
And I'm at Action Nate. ActionNate.
Yeah, they got it.
Yeah,
they got it.
I think so.
They know how to spell yours. Also, check out the Poprika feed for movie reviews, pop culture drafts, countless hours of entertainment. There's a horror movie draft. Speaking of horror films, horror movie draft just went up
Oh, I
on the
saw that.
feed
Yeah.
this week. Lots of good movies picked. Lots of good movies picked on that draft. So give that a listen. And until next leap, I'm Brian.
And I'm Nate.
And we'll be here in the waiting room.